A 14-year-old girl, weighing 19 kilograms, locked in a bedroom. In a seemingly ordinary house in Wisconsin, behind closed doors, a girl was being treated horribly. She was their servant, their prisoner. This case just broke. The arrests just happened. The details are still emerging, and what we're learning is absolutely horrifying. But before we dive into all of this, I want to thank everyone watching. Please hit like and subscribe, it really helps the channel grow. Today's case starts with the father, a man named Walter Goodman. We don't know much about Walter's early life. He was born in 1978, exact date unknown. He lives in Oneida, Wisconsin, which is where the rest of today's case takes place. When he was in high school, he met a girl who we only know by her initials, AF. For this video, I'll call her Alice. Walter and Alice had a connection and may have dated in high school, but things didn't last long and they went their separate ways. I'm telling you about Alice because she comes back into this case later. After high school, Walter had various odd jobs and moved around a lot. I know he worked as a delivery driver for Domino's Pizza at one point. He was also in and out of many relationships and couldn't really commit to one person. From these various relationships, he ended up having 3 children. He would only maintain a long-term relationship with one of these children. The other 2 cut him off completely. When a child cuts off a parent, you have to ask, what has that parent done to deserve that? Given what happens in today's case and the absolutely awful person Walter is, it's definitely his fault why the children cut him off. He definitely isn't winning any Dad of the Year awards. When Walter is 30 years old, he reconnects with Alice from high school and they instantly hit it off. They start dating, but it's a very volatile relationship, very on and off. Neither one seems able to commit to the other. Eventually, they break up for good and go their separate ways. However, months later, Alice calls Walter out of the blue because she's pregnant and says Walter is the father. Walter is not happy at all. He's already a neglectful dad to his other children. He doesn't see 2 of them, and I can't imagine he's a good dad to the one he does see. He definitely doesn't want to be a father again. The first thing Walter says to Alice is, "How do I even know I'm the father? You're always sleeping around." Walter constantly called Alice inappropriate names, but hang on. Walter does the exact same thing. He also has multiple partners. It's one rule for him, another for women. Walter wants proof he's the father because he doesn't want to waste his time on a kid that isn't his. And it's like, Walter, you don't even spend time on the children that are biologically yours. So Alice allows Walter to do a paternity test. Guess what? Walter was the biological father. In 2011, Alice gives birth to a baby girl. We don't know this girl's identity, only her initials, MJ, to protect her because of the awful things she goes through. Immediately when MJ is born, Walter isn't in the picture. Shock, horror. Did we expect anything else? He's a complete deadbeat dad. He doesn't show up when MJ is born, and he actually meets MJ for the first time when she's 4 months old. 4 months. And when he does meet his daughter, the relationship is very sporadic. It's basically always on his terms. When he can be bothered to show up as a dad, he will. But if it inconveniences him in any way, he doesn't care. He only shows up occasionally, and visits are fleeting. By the time MJ is a young child, Walter stops contact altogether. MJ doesn't see her dad for a very long time. In the years after MJ has no contact with Walter, she lives with her mom, Alice, and her grandmother, Joanne. MJ is diagnosed with ADHD and is on the autistic spectrum. However, she goes to school, is incredibly healthy, makes lots of friends, and is described by teachers as very healthy, very content, very happy, with a totally normal life. Meanwhile, Walter has completely moved on with his life and doesn't give his daughter MJ a second thought. It's very similar for Walter. Various different jobs, can never commit to one, various different relationships, unable to commit as well. In 2014, he actually ends up in jail because he fails to pay child support. For which child, I don't know, but probably all of them. But when Walter gets out of jail, something significant happens. He meets a woman named Melissa. Melissa is just as problematic as Walter and plays a very significant role in today's case. Walter and Melissa meet in 2014, start dating immediately, and end up getting married in 2016. Walter is living a completely separate life from his daughter MJ, who is currently 5 years old. We now skip forward to 2020. MJ is now 9 years old, and the COVID pandemic has just started. MJ, like many children, is forced to stay home, no longer attending school in person, attending all classes virtually. In spring 2020, only a few weeks after lockdown restrictions begin, something very unfortunate happens in MJ's life. Her mom, Alice, is arrested. We don't know what Alice was arrested for. The details haven't been made public. However, it must have been something significant because she goes to prison and is out of MJ's life for a very long time. MJ no longer lives with her mom and goes to live with various family members on her mom's side. I know at one point she was living with an aunt. However, eventually, because it becomes clear MJ isn't going to be returned to her mom anytime soon, CPS decides they want to track down MJ's father. So, of course, this leads back to Walter. CPS explains the situation, that MJ needs somewhere to live, and asks if Walter would be open to his 9-year-old daughter coming to live with him. Obviously, Walter has basically had nothing to do with his daughter for her whole life. She's 9 years old at this point. He's a neglectful dad, doesn't pay child support, has 3 other children he has nothing to do with. You would think his answer to CPS would be no. He doesn't want his daughter to live with him, especially if she has somewhere else to go, like various family members on her mom's side. However, what's so shocking is that Walter says yes. And I'm like, why? 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 That is the worst decision for MJ, as we'll find out. That one decision changes everything, because now the nightmare for MJ begins. MJ now goes to live with her new family. Inside this home, there are 4 adults. We already know about Walter. He's currently 42 years old and not in the best health. He doesn't have a job because of his health and spends most of his time at home. He's been described in articles as being very overweight, to the point of being morbidly obese. He also has liver disease and is on a waiting list for a transplant. Also living in this house is his wife, Melissa. She's 3 years older than Walter and also in very bad health. Melissa has also been described as morbidly obese, to the point where she's bedbound. She struggles to get out of bed, struggles to move around the house. She doesn't have a job and rarely leaves the house because of her weight. Also in this house is Savannah, currently in her 20s. Savannah is Melissa's daughter. She's in a very similar situation to her mother, described as very morbidly obese, bedbound because of her weight, can't really move around. She doesn't have a job and rarely leaves the house. Melissa also has another younger child living in the house, a 10-year-old boy. We don't know his identity because he's a child, so we only know him by his initials, NM. For this case, I'll call him Boy N. Boy N is also in very bad health. At this point, he's been diagnosed with cancer, which is absolutely horrific for a child to go through, especially so young. He's currently receiving treatment for his cancer. You're probably wondering how this family even affords to live, because so far I've told you about 3 adults and none of them have jobs. Walter and Melissa are getting Social Security, extra benefits for Boy N's cancer treatment, and food stamps. Finally, the 4th adult living in this house is Savannah's girlfriend, Kayla. Kayla is also in her 20s and is actually the only one in the whole house with a job. She works in childcare. Bear that in mind for the rest of this case. What's also crazy is that Savannah, the adult daughter in this house, also used to work in childcare. It blows my mind. None of these 4 adults should be anywhere near a child, let alone working with children. Because we don't know many details about their backgrounds, I'm just assuming that's how Savannah and Kayla first met, through childcare work. So currently, right now, there are 6 people living in this house, 4 adults and 2 children. We have Walter and Melissa, the older adults, Savannah, who is Melissa's child, and Kayla, Savannah's girlfriend. Then boy N, also Melissa's child, and MJ, who has now moved into this house. When MJ first moves in, it seems like everything is okay. There are 4 bedrooms in this home. Walter and Melissa share a bedroom. Kayla and Savannah share a bedroom. Boy N has his own bedroom, and MJ has her own bedroom. We're still in the middle of the COVID pandemic, so MJ is not attending school. All her classes are virtual. MJ's new family also stays in contact with her mother's side of the family, giving them regular updates on MJ. There's regular contact in the beginning. MJ's grandmother always asks for updates on how her granddaughter is doing. However, because we're in the COVID pandemic, nobody can actually visit MJ. MJ isn't allowed to go see her mom's family. She's confined to the house and only allowed to socialize with the people she lives with. About a year after moving in, Walter claimed MJ started developing problems. I need to stress, these are Walter's words, and he's proven to be a liar. This is his version, probably unreliable. Walter says due to MJ's autism, she developed harmful habits, constantly picking her skin until it bled, refusing to eat, staying awake for days. He claims these issues only appeared after living with him. Very suspicious. But here's what's important. Everyone who knew MJ before, family, teachers, said she never displayed any of these behaviors. She was happy, healthy, content. Teachers didn't even know she was on the spectrum. Then suddenly, with Walter, she's not eating, not sleeping, hurting herself. Even if true, why would this justify what happened next? Walter installed a bolt lock on MJ's bedroom door, on the outside. She became a prisoner. Food started reducing. 3 meals became 2, then 1, then almost nothing. MJ became severely malnourished. Next came cameras monitoring her 24/7. Walter claimed it was for self-harm monitoring, but there's no evidence she ever self-harmed. The whole household watched her constantly. Notifications on phones when she moved. Cameras tracking everything. Speaking to her through intercoms. Controlling her every action. Walter and Melissa took shifts watching the feed on their bedroom TV. None of them had jobs except Kayla, yet they treated this surveillance as full-time work. A 24/7 operation. A sick experiment. MJ's world kept shrinking. She needed escorts everywhere, even to the bathroom where someone watched her use the toilet. Eventually, they tired of this, quote, hassle. So MJ was truly locked in. Barely allowed bathroom access. No shower, no bath. She had to urinate on herself constantly. The last time MJ went outside, she was 10. For 4 years, she never left that house, never felt sunlight. Her entire early adolescence spent locked in a bedroom. She was pulled from virtual school, supposedly, quote, homeschooled, but never actually taught. Last doctor visit, age 9. Her health deteriorated with no one checking. Treated as a servant. How do we know all this? Text messages. The bed-bound adults communicated entirely by text, and these messages were later released publicly. In every message, they called MJ stupid, never her name, complete dehumanization. The texts are chilling. Melissa to boy N. Can you take stupid to the bathroom? Boy N. Is she supposed to only pee? Boy N, didn't Dad let her do that earlier? MJ needed permission to use the toilet. They tracked when she could pee, when she could defecate. Other messages. Have Stupid shut my door. Have her fix my phone charger, LOL. I need Stupid to fix my bed. Most infuriating. Boy N escorting MJ to the kitchen to prepare elaborate meals. String cheese, turkey, bell peppers, hummus, vitamin waters, while MJ was starving. Why the escort? So she couldn't eat. The house had multiple fridges and freezers, all full. Every adult had their own fridge, but MJ got nothing. If caught eating, she was punished. Texts discuss physical harm. I'm going to roundhouse kick her through the window. They took away her mattress. She slept on the floor. Took her TV. Everything gone. Because everything in MJ's room was filmed, there is a significant amount of footage and images connected to the case. This material hasn't been released to the public, and likely never will be, considering MJ is a minor. However, descriptions of the recordings have been made available. From these descriptions, it's clear that MJ appeared visibly neglected and in poor physical condition. She was often kept only in her underwear. Whether this was another form of punishment or control is unknown, but it shows how completely her basic dignity and comfort were taken away. Often those undergarments would have stains on them because she was barely allowed out to use the bathroom, so she was soiling herself. Sometimes she would be in a diaper because she wasn't allowed to the bathroom. There were other times when these adults would allow the dogs into MJ's room to urinate on her. It's absolutely disgusting that they would watch this happen from their bedrooms. Remember, Melissa and Savannah are bedbound, so they were probably ordering Kayla, Walter, or Boy N to allow the dogs in. They would just be lying in bed watching all of this for their own sick entertainment. 4 years of horror. This treatment goes on for years. From when she's aged 10 all the way until she's aged 14. For 4 long years, she's a personal servant to this family, locked in her room most of the time, barely given any food. It's not like they live in the middle of nowhere. They have neighbors. There are people all around them. I'm not blaming the neighbors because they genuinely didn't know what was going on. Especially because MJ first moved in during COVID, people weren't going out. Everyone was focused on themselves and their own families during such scary times. But there are neighbors everywhere, yet they're treating this girl like a servant for 4 years. At this point, Melissa, Savannah, and Walter are pretty much not leaving the home. Boy N's cancer is in remission, so he's no longer leaving for treatment. Melissa and Savannah had gained so much weight that their front porch couldn't support them. Even if they wanted to leave, they basically couldn't. Where was family? You might be wondering about MJ's other family. We know her mom got arrested, but we don't know the full situation. But MJ had a lot to do with her mom's family. So where are they? We have to remember this took place during COVID. People weren't allowed to see anybody outside their household. It became very normalized to not socialize. Once COVID restrictions lifted, MJ's family from her mom's side did try to get in contact. They wanted to see her, but every single time they arranged to visit, Walter would make up excuses. We're on vacation, MJ's sick and can't see anybody. It was just one excuse after another. Walter didn't want anyone to see MJ in the state she was in because it was so obvious she was being mistreated. Sadly, because of COVID, it almost became normalized for no one to have contact with MJ. We now get to the beginning of 2025. MJ is 14 years old. She's been trapped for 4 years. At 14, she should weigh around 110 pounds, but MJ only weighs 35 pounds. Let that sink in. 35 pounds is the average weight of a 4-year-old child, a child 10 years her junior. I'm honestly shocked she's even still alive. Her height has also been stunted. She's only 4 feet 5 inches when the average is 5 feet 3 inches. Her current height is the average of a 9-year-old. MJ is barely allowed to leave her room, only 3 times a day maximum for the bathroom or to prepare food for someone else. She's constantly urinating on herself. She's not allowed to bathe. When allowed to the bathroom, she struggles to even walk. That's how weak she is. She has to hold on to walls and door handles to support herself. She can barely hold her own weight and has to take regular breaks just walking to the bathroom because she has no energy. She also has contractures all over her body, permanent tightening of the muscles through lack of use. That's because she literally just lies on the floor all day. The family took multiple screenshots of MJ in her bedroom. In one screenshot, MJ is lying on the floor. Her mattress was taken as punishment. She's lying flat on her back with knees bent upwards, back arched, arms straight down, hands on her thighs, appearing to clench them. She must be in massive distress. She's only wearing pink underwear and orange socks. They lived with screens everywhere showing MJ in her bedroom. They were watching her in distress 24/7. They sent text messages expressing that it looked like MJ was dying, but they were worried about themselves possibly going to jail. They're literally watching a child deteriorate, and they're worried about themselves. August 2025. The 911 call in August 2025, things turn really bad. MJ's body is giving up. She starts having seizures constantly. She's throwing up constantly. On August 21st, 2025, Walter makes a 911 call. He says, "I've got a 14-year-old daughter here. She keeps being sick. She's throwing up." He says she's lying there in a comatose state, not with it, but her eyes are still open. Emergency responders rush to the scene, and what they see shocks them. They see this small girl on the floor. They initially thought she was maybe 6 to 8 years old because of how small she is. They had never seen a child in such a bad state. And they're emergency responders. They see terrible things. But these paramedics had never seen anything like this. Her blood sugar is extremely low. She's extremely dehydrated. She's on the verge of multiple organ failure. She's airlifted to hospital. Doctors do everything they can. Her heart rate is dropping. She's intubated. Critical condition. Miraculously, they managed to save her. 4 fluids, water, electrolytes, nutrients, blood transfusion. Her vital signs start to improve. I'm really happy to say MJ survived. Thankfully, this poor little girl didn't lose her life, but it's so scary how close she came. Doctors realized this wasn't a child who missed a few meals. This was somebody starved over an extended period. Her organs had literally started to fail. MJ had multiple organ dysfunction, heart issues, lung failure, cardiac dysfunction, liver and pancreas inflammation, spinal fractures, osteoporosis, pressure sores, incredibly thin skin, vitamin deficiency, nerve damage, blurry vision, dental problems, basically 0 fat stores in her entire body. She also has bruises all over. Doctors feared she was also being physically harmed, which there's evidence of from the text messages. There were also warning signs of other forms of mistreatment. My heart just truly breaks for how much that girl went through. It's truly horrific. Obviously, the police were called. They opened an investigation and started interviewing the adults in the house. They started with Walter because he's MJ's biological father. Like I've said multiple times, this case hasn't gone to trial, so we don't actually know if Walter is telling the truth or not. I'll leave it up to you to make your own minds up. Walter starts off by saying when he took custody of his daughter, she started acting weird. He says she always refused to eat, refused to drink, didn't sleep for days on end, and he blamed this all on her autism. This makes me so angry because even if all that is true, even if Walter is telling the truth, why wouldn't you take her to see a doctor? If she really is refusing to eat, you do something about it. You don't just say, "Oh, well, she's got autism. That's what's to blame." You don't do that. Even though we all know it's not her autism, it's the fact she was starved by the adults around her. But even if he is telling the truth, his argument is complete nonsense. You still do something about it. She's your child, your responsibility. He also says the mistreatment she's possibly gone through was down to her mom. She was mistreated by her mom or by people in her mom's family prior to going to live with Walter. Apparently, her mom gave her sleeping medication inappropriately. He also tries to explain the cameras in MJ's room, saying he was only monitoring her because of her self-harming behavior. Then police ask Walter, "So did you ever take her to the doctors?" Walter responds, "No, because she seemed like a healthy and happy child." Does he hear himself? Does he truly hear the words coming out of his mouth? It doesn't add up. On one hand, he's saying she self-harms, she's not eating or drinking, she's not sleeping, yet she's a happy and healthy child. It doesn't add up. He also says the last time MJ saw a doctor was a year prior, which again is not true. There's actual evidence MJ hadn't seen a doctor in 6 years. Police also ask Walter how long MJ has been underweight, to which Walter says, "Oh, just a few days." He says she lost a lot of weight due to a mysterious illness, and this mysterious illness caused her to drop weight like crazy. Again, I'm completely speechless. Can he hear the words leaving his mouth? He says MJ ate 2 Pop-Tarts for breakfast every single day, had a sandwich for lunch every single day, along with a big dinner every single day. That's complete nonsense. If she's eating that food every day, please explain why she only weighs 35 pounds. The detective also doesn't believe Walter. The detective says everyone else in the home was a lot heavier than MJ. The detective asks, "But why was that?" Walter responds that MJ just burns a lot of calories because she's always running around after the puppies. Again, not true. There's video footage of MJ just lying in her room day in, day out. If she was constantly running around, running after the puppies, number one, she wouldn't burn that many calories that she would only weigh 35 pounds. Number two, she wouldn't have those pressure sores from not moving. It doesn't add up. It's complete nonsense. They then interview Melissa, Savannah, and Kayla. Guess what? All of them have the exact same story, the exact same excuses, almost like it was rehearsed. But obviously, the investigation keeps digging, and this is when they uncover the mountain of digital evidence. Not only do they uncover all the text messages between all the adults where they're talking about the mistreatment of MJ, about using her as a personal servant, they also uncover all the video footage, all the images of MJ in her room. They realize this was long-term systematic neglect. This wasn't just a child that had missed a few meals or had this mysterious illness. Following the investigation, all 4 adults in that home are arrested. That's Walter, Melissa, Savannah, and Kayla. All of them are charged with multiple felony counts of chronic neglect of a child, which includes failure to provide necessary care, failure to provide food, clothing, education, medical care, as well as causing great bodily harm to a child. This was just a few weeks ago in November of 2025. Walter Goodman was the first of the 4 adults to end up in court for the pretrial hearing. This is when the criminal complaint document got released to the public, revealing all the horrific details of this case. I obviously made sure to read the whole thing. Even though I typically wait for cases to be complete when I make a video, I wait till there's been a trial, until somebody has been found guilty, I just couldn't wait with this case. There was a lot of information that's been released very early on, which is rare for cases. Normally, we only get the bulk of information when the actual trial is happening. But this case is just so horrendous. I cannot believe what MJ was put through. I felt like more people needed to know about this case right now, which is why I decided to make this video now. When it comes to MJ's recovery, it's been just over 3 months now since she was rescued. Obviously, she was admitted for treatment, she was in a terrible state, and doctors had to slowly reintroduce food to her in a safe and healthy way. It was soon realized that MJ doesn't have an eating disorder, which is what Walter kind of claimed. She actually loves food. She doesn't struggle to eat food. She looks forward to eating food. Her eyes literally light up when food is put in front of her. Tragically, MJ would give a very concerned look to the person putting food in front of her. MJ would say, "Oh, my dad doesn't like it when I eat too much. My heart just truly breaks." MJ also sleeps perfectly fine. She sleeps normally, even though, again, this was something her dad said she struggled with. He said she didn't sleep for days. Well, that wasn't true. At least it didn't happen when she wasn't in his care. Eventually, MJ begins eating regularly. She's now having 3 meals every single day, and she starts to gain weight again. She's gained nearly 20 pounds, almost doubling her weight in just 3 months. But tragically, the lifelong effects of what she's been through, the prolonged neglect and malnourishment, could be devastating. There's potential for her to have permanent damage to her organs, as well as her bones and brain development. She was starved through crucial years of her development, and this will have lifelong psychological effects on her. It just makes me so angry that she's possibly going to suffer in some way for the rest of her life.